Your t-shirt says unicorn dog?
Yeah, it beholds the unicorn dog.
Is the horn made out of something?
It's the popsicle stick to the corn dog.
Oh, okay.
And it's
I haven't
mustard.
had a corn dog in forever. I like it.
My son has the same one, so we have matching unicorn dog shirts.
That's awesome.
Welcome everybody to the terrible name, but we just forgot that we needed to name this show. So we're going to figure something out, but we are from Dynasty League Football, DLF, and this is a show about trade, so it's a trade show. It made sense. We rolled with it. If you can't tell by the babbling, I am your host, Russ Fisher at Dynasty Outhouse on Twitter. Sitting to the next of me, which I hate that StreamYard mirrors, is Addison Hayes at AmazeHayes_. Did I remember that?
That's it.
Shoots, he scores. All right. So what we are going to be doing on this show is we are going to take a trade. We found this in the DLF Trade Finder because that is one of the awesome tools we have on DynastyLeagueFootball.com. And we are going to pick a player, search the Trade Finder, and find one trade that we think is super interesting that we can talk about, say how we feel about it, run it through the Trade Analyzer, and just kind of sum everything up about all these players, how the trade fits together, and if it doesn't work out, how we think and how the Trade Analyzer thinks it can be worked out to be just made all that much better, because we like wrapping things up with a neat little bow at the end. Let's us talk about this trade. First, let's get into the league itself. This is 12 teams, super flex, with 6-point passing touchdowns, exceptions. This is it's a safe leagues with Scott Fish. I'm going to read the trade out. He's going to give the rundown on the teams and how he feels about the trade. I'm going to say how I feel about the trade, and then we'll go through the analyzer. So the trade that we have for you today, we wanted to get a trade with Justin Jefferson. So we found Justin Jefferson and the 2.04 for Joe Burrow, the 1.11 and 3.11. So Addison, why don't you walk us through a little bit of these two teams that are involved in this trade?
Yeah, so just in general, I thought whenever I found this on the Trade Finder that this was a super interesting trade just because it's, Justin Jefferson, a high-priced asset right now, and then you got Joe Burrow, so it's a quarterback for a wide receiver trade in a super flex, and then you got the picks trying to equal it out on both sides, and just based on that, I thought it was super interesting. But then I looked at both teams. So Team A, the team that traded away Joe Burrow for Justin Jefferson, I actually found out through research in their MFL league, is actually the runner-up in 2020 after they went 6-7 in the regular season. So narrowly slid into the playoffs, made a Cinderella run, made it all the way to the championship, lost the championship by about 30 points. And that's where he's at right now. So I'm assuming that this trade is actually going to be looking to make him more of a contender in 2021. His other quarterbacks are actually Kyler Murray and Deshaun Watson. Those are actually his only other two quarterbacks. He doesn't have anybody else. But those are two awesome quarterbacks, which in his mind probably made Joe Burrow kind of a movable asset. His other wide receivers are Keenan Allen, Odell Beckham Jr., Cooper Kupp, Cortland Sutton, and Michael Pittman. What was actually really interesting, I looked at the championship matchup. His wide receivers that he started in that matchup included like Tyron Johnson, and like he didn't have Keenan Allen, he didn't have OBJ, he didn't have Cortland Sutton, like he didn't have any of those guys for the championship. So I'm wondering if that kind of played into this trade. He didn't have Joe Burrow playing, so he's like, I could have turned Joe Burrow into an actual usable asset that I could have helped me win in the championship. So that's at least Team A. Team B, the team that traded away Justin Jefferson for Joe Burrow, went 4-9 in the regular season. They were fourth in potential points, didn't make the playoffs. They have the fourth overall pick in the rookie draft, 104 and the 204. His other quarterbacks are Teddy Bridgewater, Dwayne Haskins, and Joe Flacco.
So none.
Definitely. No other quarterbacks on his roster. So definitely needed help at the quarterback position, which is why he traded for Joe Burrow. His other wide receivers are Devontae Parker, Curtis Samuel, Alan Lazard, T.Y. Hilton. It was a bunch of names kind of like that. Like it's a really weird core of wide receivers as well too. I can just basically, from looking at his roster, really could tell that this guy is in like a complete rebuild right now, or at least needs to be headed in that direction. And I think trading away Justin Jefferson for Joe Burrow is the first step in that rebuild.
There's no right or wrong way to do anything, but I think the best way to start a rebuild in a Superflex league is get those young quarterbacks, because
absolutely,
I mean, Joe Burrow is going to be a quarterback in this league for, man, what is he? It says his age on the Trade Finder. He is Trade Analyzer. He is 24 years old. This dude's going to be a quarterback in the NFL for at least another 10 to 15 years, the way people are playing. So not to say you're going to have him on your team for this long, but it's a nice core to start building your team around. And especially with Justin Jefferson, who, man, can his value get all that much higher? I mean, let's call it what it is. He's like the wide receiver 3 or 4 at this point. You know what? I have February Superflex DLF ADP brought up. He is wide receiver 3. The only wide receivers above him are Devontae Adams and DK Metcalf. Now, Justin Jefferson did great, literally history-making wide receiver. And if this were a 1 QB league, that's who you build this team around. But, man, you can't. It's tough to win in Superflex league with just one quarterback. You can't win with no quarterbacks. So, to me, this trade was absolutely perfect. The perfect move to make. And, okay, so let's get down to the trade itself. Justin Jefferson, the 204, for Joe Burrow, the 111, and the 311. I like it. I mean, that's really all I could stop to think is you're getting rid of this huge asset that honestly can't go all that much higher. So it's the perfect sell in a rebuild. Getting a young quarterback who, coming off of that ACL tear, his value can go up. He can do better. So I love getting in on Joe Burrow right now. You're getting another first-round pick, which honestly, where was Justin Jefferson drafted last year? Now I get it. Super lucky to get him late in the end. Like, I can't go and say, hey, well, AJ Brown was drafted in the 111 to make you think that the 111 now is a magical, awesome pick for wide receivers. But still, you're getting that shot because there's a lot of very good wide receivers coming out in this draft. So you're going to get a fill-in that, is he going to be wide receiver 3 next year? Let's be honest. Probably not. But it's still a great way to start that rebuild. Value-wise, I mean, I kind of, spoiler alert, DLF doesn't necessarily agree with us, but both Addison and I really just felt like Justin Jefferson is the more valuable asset. So paying Joe Burrow and a late first makes sense. I am 100% in favor of this trade for both teams. I think it works out awesome. Hopefully the team trading away Burrow, the one that was Kyler and Watson, hopefully they don't have any quarterback injuries, going forward, because man, only having 2 is a little scary, but it's way too soon to worry about that. Right now, trades are just about values. You're not setting lineups for another 7 months. So I love this trade. To me, it's completely even, makes perfect sense. And yeah, I'm just going to keep saying the same things over and over again unless you start talking. So why don't you talk about how you feel about the trade?
I mean, yeah, I agree with a lot of everything that you said, especially when you look at it from the team that is in clear rebuild. They're moving away from Justin Jefferson. They're gaining an asset in Joe Burrow. That's the first step to be able to find a young quarterback, especially when you have no other quarterbacks on your Superflex roster. That is the first step in your rebuild, is gaining those guys. Even if it means trading away every available asset that you have, you need to be able to get those quarterbacks. And what also I think is really interesting in this trade and really going to benefit the team in rebuild is that 111 as well too. So he's moving Jefferson for Joe Burrow. He gained that 111. He gave up the 204, so he moved up 5 spots. But he gained that 111, which when you look at February rookie ADP is around the range of a Rashad Bateman, a Rondale Moore. I wouldn't. Javonte Williams is in there, but I wouldn't go running back when you're in a clear rebuild. So you need to be going for those other guys. Mac Jones is also in that range as well, too. If you're looking for another kind of dart throw quarterback, if he lands with like the Pittsburgh Steelers, or maybe he goes to Carolina or something like that to replace, he had Teddy Bridgewater. So that might end up being a cool situation for him. But then he also has that 104 as well, too, right? We haven't even talked about the fact that he has the 4th overall pick.
If you saw that he still had that or not, because that is huge.
Yeah, I believe he does. So that would be again, just another quarterback. He's not going to get Trevor Lawrence, probably not Justin Fields, but if he can get a Zach Wilson, maybe Trey Lance, if he lands as a starting quarterback in the top 10, that's just another quarterback right there. And now you've set yourself on a nice path for at least another year or two to continue to do this rebuild process. Then on the flip side, the team that got Justin Jefferson, I really hope that he doesn't have any injuries to Deshaun Watson or Kyler Murray. And I don't know if he's hoping that Watson gets traded or not. Probably does, because the Texans seem like they're just being gutted and moving on from like Will Fuller and everything. But he could really be putting himself in a solid situation with Justin Jefferson, along with the other wide receivers that he has. Looking at his running back core, it's a little shaky. But that's all things that can be fixed between now and September. We got 7 months to finish that out as the rest of the season moves on. And it's probably best to not invest in running backs right now anyway, just because of the volatility, and we don't know how the NFL draft is going to shake out. So I like the trade from both sides, probably more so from the team that got Joe Burrow. I think it's a much better trade for him, just in terms of his team's direction and where he's, trying to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that 204, there's, like you were talking about, building a competing team. Like, there's going to be a great stretch of a couple of running backs around there. Trey Sermon, I don't know why that was so tough to say. Chuba Hubbard, Jamar Jefferson. There's a big run of running backs around there. So you can't, and when you're competing, that's when you want to start drafting those running backs. So I think you can get a nice dart throw if you're not, once you hit the draft, you'll be able to throw that 204 and get yourself not necessarily an aging running back, but a guy who's not one of those big names anymore. Like, when you go past the Swifts, all the guys that came out this year, and then Aaron Jones is probably not going to go for all that much more than the 204 if he doesn't land in like the choicest of spots. So I think there's just so much you can do with that 204. So I'm just going to keep gushing everyone, but I agree. I think 100% it helps this rebuilding team so much and gives him, if it's me, I'm a wide receiver guy. So if I can get Jamar Chase at the 104, I would love. I don't know if I could pass that up, especially again in a rebuilding team. You just lost Justin Jefferson. The smart move would be to take Lance if he fell into a good spot, because I'm guessing Wilson's probably going to go 3 if he goes as early as they say. So there's just so much you can do with all of this. So let's stop babbling. Let's go to the DLF Trade Analyzer. Now, this trade was the Justin Jefferson side was 792.7. The Joe Burrow side was 937.0. This actually has Joe Burrow ahead of Justin Jefferson. And when I saw that, I actually took a step. Well, I didn't take a step back because I'm sitting down. Like, I leaned back a little bit. I'm like, really? And then I pulled up February DLF ADP for Superflex, and it's absolutely the case where, of course, I clicked away from it. So let's go back, and Justin Jefferson is the wide receiver 3 at pick 20, and Joe Burrow is the quarterback 9 at pick 14. This also, I think this year is going to start making quarterbacks skew earlier in ADP, just because, like Schefter put out a tweet, Adam Schefter put out a tweet, like there's 18 teams that have not set quarterback positions, and I think that scared everybody. So these guys that have solid starting positions, like, I'm trying to go through them, like Russell Wilson to me shouldn't be drafted in the first round anymore. I'm a Seahawks fan, and I don't think that's what it should be. Like, if this were any other year, we'd be freaking out that Russell Wilson is 32 on another year where Pete Carroll's saying we need to establish the run right after the season ends.
Right.
But still, he's being drafted at the 14th pick. So I value is what value is, and I guess I'm arguing against myself in this one, but it would not shock me in the least in an actual startup to see Justin Jefferson go around ahead of Joe Burrow. If you don't find yourself in one of these drafts that does go 9 to 10 QBs in the first round. So but it is what it is. These numbers are what they are. Numbers, I am told, do not lie. So there's a 145 point difference between these two sides, which Addison was so nice to find out is about the 203 to 204. And here's the thing with me. When you're talking about guys that are drafted in the first, second rounds of startups, the 204 is not a big deal. Like, that's a gap you let go to get the side you want to get. And to me, both of these guys did that. So I stick back to what I said 6 times when I first introduced this trade. I love it. I think it's perfect. I think it works perfectly. So do you have anything to add before I guess we kind of wrap this up? Because you said what you felt. I said what I felt 8 times. We said what the DLF Trade Analyzer felt. Yeah. And hey, man, you got to read all of your notes. You were worried that you were just going to skip past some of it, but we covered this whole show sheet.
We got through all of it, and I love how we didn't even talk about the 311 at all. Like,
I mean, they're a good band. Like, we could talk about 311 if you want.
No, that's we don't need to.
A little before your time, kid. All right. Well, thank you for joining us for the first episode of, again, tentatively titled the DLF Trade Show. We'll probably think of something awesome as soon as we hit the end broadcast button. But hopefully we're going to be doing this again. We're going to be doing this often, and maybe it'll be a little more structured. Who knows? You know, with me, there's not usually structure. But thank you for watching. I am Russ Fisher at Dynasty Outhouse. He is Addison Hayes at AmazeHayes_. We are from DynastyLeagueFootball.com. And am I saying anything else, or are you going to say goodbye too?
No, go ahead.
Bye.
Goodbye.